Well, welcome to episode 3 of Church Tech 101. Today's episode is entitled, You Get What You Pay For. I don't think hardly a week will go by without a pastor calling me and saying, Hey, brother, we just saw this wireless on Amazon, these wireless mics. What do you think about that? And quite frankly, my answer is, probably not. And there's a couple of reasons for that. And not all the stuff on Amazon is bad. But there's a couple of reasons for that. So let's get into that in this episode and talk about, is it worth investing in quality wireless? And the answer is yes. But are there also times where you're not going to be able to do that? The answer is also yes. And I get it. And I know there are a certain number of sound guys that can be kind of snobby and a little bit judgy about that kind of thing. But I understand, like there's a point in your ministry where a budget brand wireless might work for you. But remember, there's also a point in your ministry when there are funds available and it's time to dump the junk. So anyway, so one of the things I want to talk about with a lot of this inexpensive wireless is that some of it only has one receiver. So let's kind of back up a little bit. This used to be the norm, where your mic would transmit the radio signal to the receiver and it was plugged into your mixer. And that was how it worked. But Shure really pioneered, I believe, what they called true diversity, which is that the receiver actually has two receivers. And it has two antennas. And what happens is, as you move around, different antennas have a stronger signal than the other one. And the system will automatically switch between antenna A and antenna B, back and forth. You don't notice it or even hear it. But what it's doing is it's switching to the one that has the strongest signal. And what that does is it prevents dropouts. So when you're walking around, your mic doesn't all of a sudden go or something like that, as the radio signal drops because you turned around or whatever and you've blocked partly one of the antennas. True diversity really almost eliminated dropouts the way that it's built. And it's an excellent system. And so single diversity stuff had pretty much gone away until Amazon Wireless. And now there is a ton of single diversity stuff out there. With one antenna on it, and as soon as you get any interference, you're going to hear it loud and clear over the sound system. That being said, there are some Amazon brands that have the double receiver built in, the diversity built in. One of them is GTD Audio. And keep in mind, any Amazon brand that I mention, that is not an endorsement from me or a recommendation. It is well, if you gotta, you might buy. But don't say, Brother Tim said I should. So what brands do I recommend? Well, let me tell you a little story to kind of point this out, because we have in our chapel, which is a multi-purpose space. It gets used every week for Spanish church. It gets used every week for school during the school year. And it gets used every week for Wednesday night services. So we have two Shure BLX. It is Shure's very entry-level system. But those are going on 7 years without any issues. We did replace the lapel mic, because, sometimes with lapel mics, that cable just gets crackly. By the way, if your lapel mic or your body pack mic is making crackly noises, try messing with your cable. And if that makes more crackly noises, it might be time to replace that lapel mic. The body pack might be just fine. Anyway, so longevity, like build quality, is the thing when you buy good wireless. And so you can invest in it. Is it more expensive? Yes. Are you going to have a lot more years of trouble-free or low drama usage out of it? Yes, you are. Um, our main auditorium has some Shure SLX, which has been discontinued. And boy, that's going on probably 10 or 12 years old. Still functions well. And some of it's starting to wear. All the handheld mics are shiny. The handle parts are shiny from people holding them and disinfecting and wiping, and but it still works. And so it's a good investment into a quality product. For me, kind of the big three, if I'm gonna look at and investing in wireless, I'm gonna buy something from Shure, I'm gonna buy something from Audio Technica, or I'm gonna buy something from Sennheiser. It's not Sennheiser. Please don't say Schneinschnauzer. It's Sennheiser. Um, those guys are kind of the 800-pound gorillas of the wireless mic world. There are companies that are better, but you see them a lot in really big churches with unlimited budgets, or you'll see them in the broadcast world. Companies like Electrosonics make fantastic quality stuff. It's ridiculously expensive. Is it good? Yes. If you have the budget, okay. But for most churches, an entry-level product from Shure, Sennheiser, Audio Technica is going to be a good investment. Now, I see a lot of churches use companies like Nady and Voco Pro, Galaxy Audio, a couple churches with Phoenix Pro stuff, and then after that, just myriads of stuff I've never even heard of. I personally, if it's working for you and you're in an area where radio frequencies or interference isn't a problem, then great. But I don't have a lot of experience with those brands, and so I don't really know what to tell you. Voco Pro I know has been around a while, and that kind of started off as a karaoke mic company, and that's kind of still their focus, I think. And so, on karaoke night, if the mic drops out, it's not a big deal. But, in a funeral, when somebody's giving their memory of Aunt Betty and the mic goes, that's not great. So, let's see. What else did I want to talk about in this episode? Oh, I have a couple notes here about cheap wireless problems. And one of them is handling noise. So this is when somebody holds a cheap handheld mic, and I'm alert. I'm going to grab my mic here, my broadcast mic, and you can hear all the noise when they adjust their hand. All that stuff like this comes through the sound system. So that's just something that you'll see with cheap wireless, and that's because the capsule isn't really shock mounted on the handle. It's just attached straight to the handle. Even some big name brand budget wireless will sound like this. So it's just something to be aware of. The other thing I found with budget wireless is that the lapel mic quality is abysmal. I have not found one that I plugged it in and thought, oh, well, that sounds good and clear and natural. It just sounds muffled or boomy, or, so sometimes the quality isn't good. And then the other thing is interoperability with other systems. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's say you started off with the cheap wireless and then you wanted to add some, better wireless. The problem with cheap wireless systems is they don't have very good documentation about what frequencies they're operating on, or how to coordinate those frequencies with other systems to make sure that the two systems don't interfere with each other. All the big companies have excellent documentation on that. What frequency does each channel, is it, connected to? Because on the front, you'll just see channels or groups. And so all that is much easier to document. And if you are looking at some point moving that into a larger ecosystem or expanding your wireless ecosystem, then these being able to work with each other is a really big deal. And we'll get into that in a different podcast. So that's kind of my plug about wireless. It really is one of those things where you get what you pay for. I have found a lot of budget friendly wired mics that really punch above their weight. And there are some new wireless, budget friendly wireless systems coming out that I have not investigated yet. And so they're always trying to get better. But right now, the wireless landscape on Amazon is a little bit question marky, if you get my drift. And so, my admonition to you is be careful. And if you're going to buy it, at least buy it where you can return it if it goes poorly. But also let your expectation be with cheap wireless mics that longevity just isn't going to be there like it will be with a good name brand. Here's my tip, my pro tip. If the company has pro or professional as part of their name, they probably aren't professional. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thanks for joining me for this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.